You know that feeling when you're just sitting at your desk and you've got like 3 different document tabs open?
Oh, yeah, and your phone is buzzing.
Exactly. The text messages are going off, an email notification just slid across the top right of the screen,
Yeah.
and like someone in the hallway is talking just loud enough that you absolutely cannot tune them out.
It's the worst.
It really is. Your brain just starts to feel like a computer with the cooling fan running on absolute maximum overdrive. I
Yep.
mean, you are completely overwhelmed by the modern world and all its endless, inescapable stimuli.
Right. And it's a universal modern condition at this point. I mean, we're constantly absorbing information, constantly reacting, and rarely, if ever, giving our nervous systems a chance to genuinely power down.
Yeah.
We think we're resting when we, scroll on our phones, but neurologically, we are just switching from one intense stimulus to another. We're burning bandwidth we don't even realize we're using.
Exactly. And that's exactly why we're looking at something totally unexpected today to fix that brain drain. We've got a presentation from Dr. Christophe Delong and a team at Kinexa Formation, and they're using an incredibly unlikely tool to hack our nervous systems.
Which I love.
Right. 19th century Impressionist paintings. So it's part of a larger program they run called 15 Days with the Impressionists. And for this deep dive, we're focusing on day 13, which is entirely about cognitive disconnection.
Yeah, and this is so great because, my core belief has always been that true knowledge lies in connecting unexpected dots.
Oh, absolutely.
When you first look at classic oil paintings, you just think, art, history, museums, aesthetics, right? But Dr. DeLong and Kinexa Formation, they frame these specific Impressionist works not just as art, but as visual blueprints for neurological recovery.
Like actual instruction manuals.
Yes, literal instruction manuals for your nervous system, showing us precisely how to step out of that modern overload.
So the mission for our deep dive today is to explore how 4 iconic Impressionist paintings can teach you to activate what's called your default mode network and maintain a stable internal center of gravity amidst all that noise and actually physically recover from cognitive exhaustion.
This is a really powerful journey.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this with our first painting, which just perfectly captures that feeling of being in a crowded, noisy room. It's Edouard Manet's masterpiece from 1882, Un bar aux Folies Bergères, which is currently at the Courtauld Gallery in London.
Right, and if you picture this painting, or if you've ever stood in front of it, you know it is just a masterclass in contrasting environments.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
Exactly. So in the foreground, you have a barmaid, and behind her is this giant mirror reflecting the Folies Bergères, which, was this famously chaotic, vibrant, incredibly loud nightclub in Paris.
You can practically hear the painting.
You really can. You see chandeliers, a massive crowd. There are a trapeze artist's legs in the top corner. And on the marble counter right in front of her, there are bottles of champagne, a bowl of bright oranges, flowers. I mean, it is visual and sensory saturation at its absolute peak.
But the focus of the painting is the barmaid herself, right? And
Yes.
specifically her gaze. She's looking out, but she isn't really looking at anything.
Exactly. She's unanchored.
Yeah, she's just staring into the middle distance. Her gaze is entirely empty, just turned completely inward. So she's in the middle of all that chaos, but she's experiencing this moment of total cognitive disconnection.
And what's fascinating here is how Manet managed to capture a measurable neurobiological state decades before modern brain scans even existed.
That's wild to think about.
Right. That empty gaze perfectly illustrates the brain switching to the default mode network, or the DMN. And the DMN is a specialized neural network that activates precisely when we just cease to focus on the outside world.
Wait, so you're telling me spacing out isn't just a bad habit? Because, I mean, usually we look at someone zoning out like that and we think they're being rude or absent-minded or just entirely unproductive.
Far from it. This prefrontal isolation, as it's called, is actually a vital biological skill because when you're constantly focused outward, your brain is burning immense amounts of glucose just to predict and react to your environment.
It's constantly on edge.
Right. So when you disconnect and let your gaze go empty, the DMN kicks in. This is when your brain does its offline processing. It reorganizes memories, clears metabolic waste, and stabilizes your internal emotional state.
Wow, so it's like putting your car's transmission into neutral?
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like the engine is still running, you're still consuming energy, but you aren't driving forward. You're just letting the engine cool down and the internal fluids circulate while the world just, speeds by around you.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Zoning out is active neural housekeeping. When you decouple from external stimuli, your brain finally has the bandwidth to process, sort, and recover. I mean, if you never shift into neutral, you burn out the transmission.
And Kinexa formation takes this from an abstract concept into hard data,
Yeah.
right? Because they actually measure a person's capacity to enter this default mode network.
They do. They recognize entering the DMN as a key measurable indicator for mental recovery, and specifically for the consolidation of motor learning.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, think about trying to learn a complex physical skill, right? Like a new golf swing, or even just recovering from a physical injury. You can practice the motion all you want, but the actual neuroplasticity, the actual wiring of that new skill into your brain, that happens when you disconnect.
So if you don't zone out, it doesn't stick.
Precisely. If you cannot enter the DMN, you cannot physically or mentally consolidate what you've just learned.
So how do you actually apply this if you're stuck in a modern-day Folies Bergère, like a loud open-plan office, for example? The motor application here from the source involves taking a completely screen-free pause to just let your gaze wander.
No phones allowed.
Right. You don't look at anything specific. You just combine that with an active introspection, like a silent body scan, and you let your breathing become totally free and uncontrolled.
You basically channel the barmaid. You just allow yourself to be prefrontally isolated.
But zoning out mentally is really only half the battle, right? Because even if my brain is in neutral, my body is usually still incredibly tense. Like I'm hunched over a keyboard or gripping a steering wheel. How does the body actually discharge all that accumulated physical tension?
Yeah. So this is where we shift from isolating the mind to the biological necessity of releasing the body. Because when the pressure gets to be too high, that physical armor just has to crack. And for that, we turn to Edgar Degas's 1876 painting, L'Absinthe, which is housed at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris.
Now, I have to push back a little on how this painting is traditionally viewed. Wait, I mean, if you look at L'Absinthe, we see two figures sitting in a bustling Parisian cafe, and they look incredibly bleak.
They really do.
Right. Their shoulders are completely slumped, they look heavy, they're just staring blankly into the floor. For over a century, art critics have called this a portrait of urban isolation and depression. So are we sure this isn't just sheer exhaustion or sadness?
And that is exactly where the neuroaesthetic analysis flips the script entirely. While it's historically interpreted as despair, Dr. Delong argues that Degas is actually painting a décharge tonique, a tonic discharge.
Okay, a tonic discharge.
Yes, this isn't depression. This is the exact, precise biological moment the autonomic nervous system finally lets go of accumulated pressure.
So what is actually happening in the nervous system when we slump like that?
Well, you have to understand muscle tone. Even when you're just sitting still, your muscles hold a baseline level of tension. It's like a low-level electrical hum that keeps you upright against gravity and ready to react to danger.
Right.
When you're stressed, that tone skyrockets. You are literally wearing your stress as a physical armor. So a tonic discharge is the moment the brain finally signals the muscles that it is safe to turn off that electrical hum.
Oh, wow. So it's not weakness, it's a structural necessity.
Exactly. Think of it like a pressure valve on an industrial boiler. If the steam builds up indefinitely, the entire system just explodes.
Obviously.
The only way to maintain structural integrity is to actively blow off the steam. So Degas' figures aren't defeated. They're venting the boiler. They're experiencing cognitive dissociation. They're physically present in a noisy cafe, but mentally absent, just allowing that physical release to take over.
This raises such an interesting point about how we treat our own bodies. You know, think about how often you catch yourself slumping in your office chair and your immediate reaction is to guilt yourself.
Oh, 100%.
You sit up straight, you tense your core, you force yourself back into this rigid, professional posture.
Which is exactly the wrong move.
Yeah.
This raises an important question. Why do we constantly fight our own biology? The visual cues in Degas' painting, that total abandonment to the chair, they show us what the autonomic nervous system looks like when it successfully stops fighting gravity.
So the motor application derived from this is actually incredibly forgiving. It instructs us to consciously let our shoulders drop. Just let gravity win for a moment. Close your eyes for 2 minutes to decompress your visual cortex. And crucially, you must accept this immobility without guilt.
Yes.
Accept immobility without guilt.
That might be the hardest part for most people, honestly, but Kinexa uses this total postural release as a measurable biological signal, right?
Yes. They detect this transition to low muscle tone because it is a direct, necessary precursor to deep physiological recovery. You just cannot jump from high stress to perfect calm.
That makes sense.
You have to pass through this physical discharge, this letting go of the muscular armor, because if your muscles are tense, they're sending constant feedback loops to your brain saying, we are in danger. Until the muscles drop, the brain just won't believe it's safe. Okay, so we've disconnected from the external noise with Monet's barmaid, and we've vented the physical pressure valve with Degas' slumped cafe patrons. But now you're left a bit unmoored. I mean, you're relaxed, but you're kind of a puddle. How do you rebuild your sense of self and get ready to actually engage with the world again?
You have to recalibrate your internal map.
And for that recalibration, we look at Berthe Morisot's painting from roughly 1875 to 1880, Femme à sa toilette, located at the Art Institute of Chicago.
Beautiful piece.
Yeah, we see a woman viewed from behind, sitting in front of a mirror as she does her hair, and the brushstrokes are incredibly light, almost vaporous.
It's a profoundly intimate painting, but more importantly, it captures a moment of absolute presence to oneself. The woman at the mirror is not being vain. Instead, she is fully conscious of her physical boundaries, of her contours, of her silhouette.
Right.
This is an exercise in schema corporal, or body schema. It is a vital reconnection to the internal image of oneself.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like your smartphone's GPS recalibrating. Because before you can ask your muscles to perform a complex task, whether that's, swinging a tennis racket, giving a public presentation, or just navigating a busy, crowded sidewalk, your brain needs to ping its internal satellites to know exactly where its borders are.
Oh, exactly.
If your internal map is off, your movements are just going to be clumsy and tense.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that recalibration can only happen effectively when you remove one specific toxin, and that is self-criticism.
Oh, wow.
When you look at Morisot's painting, the sensory softness and those vaporous strokes actually soothe the viewer's nervous system. It makes you slow down.
Mm-hmm.
When you observe yourself, whether you are looking in a literal mirror or doing an internal body scan, you have to do it entirely without judgment.
Why is the without judgment part so critical from a strictly biological standpoint?
Because judgment is perceived by the brain as a threat. If you look in the mirror and criticize your posture or your weight or your tired eyes, your amygdala triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
And that ruins the recalibration.
Completely. Those hormones instantly flood the nervous system and disrupt your proprioception, which is your ability to sense where your body is in space. The absence of judgment is what actually allows the pure, clean proprioceptive data to be processed by the brain effectively.
That makes so much sense. I mean, you can't calibrate a delicate instrument if you're simultaneously shaking the table.
Exactly. And Kinexa formation views this body consciousness as a strict, non-negotiable prerequisite for fluid motor command. They integrate this exact kind of proprioceptive data gathering into their rehabilitation protocols.
Wow.
If your brain doesn't have an accurate, calm map of your body, your movements will just be jerky, tense, and highly inefficient.
So to practice this, the motor application asks you to do a body scan in front of a mirror, observing without judging, and pair it with a very specific breathing technique. It's a slow abdominal breathing with 4 counts on the inhale and 6 counts on the exhale. But why that specific 4-to-6 ratio?
Well, that longer exhale is a classic, scientifically proven mechanical trigger for the vagus nerve. When you exhale longer than you inhale, your diaphragm moves in a way that actually signals the vagus nerve to slow your heart rate down.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you are literally manually shifting your nervous system into a state of calm while you rebuild your internal body schema.
Okay, so we've isolated the mind, released the muscular armor, and recalibrated our internal GPS without judgment. All of these previous steps lead directly to the final, ultimate biological destination, which is perfect systemic balance.
Yes, the state where everything is operating at peak efficiency with minimal effort.
And the visual representation of this goal is Pierre-Auguste Renoir's 1880 painting, Portrait de Mademoiselle Irene Kahn d'Anvers, currently at the Foundation E.G. Berle in Zurich. It's a portrait of a young girl with flowing auburn hair. Visually, it's stunning, but neurologically, it represents an absolute triumph.
The neuroaesthetic analysis points out that this painting represents absolute, unshakable calm. Irene's gaze is serene, it is anchored, and it is completely without tension. It's the perfect image of a nervous system in homeostatic equilibrium.
Homeostatic equilibrium, meaning she is neither understimulation and lethargic nor overstimulated and panicked. She's resting perfectly in the center.
Exactly.
And just like with Morisot's vaporous strokes, the aesthetics of Renoir's painting serve a biological function for the viewer. The soft pink tones and the highly fluid Impressionist brushstrokes naturally induce a parasympathetic response in the spectator. The parasympathetic system is, of course, your rest-to-digest network.
Right.
Just looking at this painting is an act of practicing cognitive disconnection.
It acts as a visual tuning fork for your brain. Your nervous system sees that profound state of homeostasis in Irene's face and posture, and thanks to mirror neurons, your body literally begins to physically replicate it.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, sitting at a stressful office desk right in the middle of a chaotic Tuesday? Because you can't just stare at a Renoir painting all day. How do you realistically replicate Irene's perfect homeostatic state?
Well, the application gives us very clear, actionable physical triggers to reach that target. First, it prescribes attentive immobility, which is sitting without moving for 5 minutes. And notice the difference here. This isn't the slumped, exhausted immobility of Degas.
Right.
This is an anchored, serene immobility. You are holding your posture, but without excessive tension.
And the second step is fascinating. It calls for a soft, unfocused gaze to widen the visual field. Why does the visual field matter so much to our stress levels?
This is deeply tied to human evolution. When we are stressed or when we are staring at a screen, we use foveal vision, where our vision naturally narrows into a sharp, hyper-focused tunnel.
Okay, this is a sympathetic nervous system response.
Right.
It's a survival mechanism designed for focusing on a threat, like a predator or, prey we are hunting. But when you soften your gaze and actively take in your peripheral vision, you are sending a massive biological signal to your deep brain that there are no predators around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, widening your visual field actively commands your nervous system to stand down.
That is incredible. Just softening your eyes tells your brain you are safe. Finally, the application calls for a progressive release of the jaw and the neck.
Right, because the jaw and the neck are the primary holding zones for residual unconscious tension. You can think you're perfectly relaxed, but if your jaw is clenched, your trigeminal nerve is still telling your brain you're preparing for a fight.
And Kinexa measures this ultimate state of calm through HRV, or heart rate variability. Why do they focus on the variability rather than just wanting a low, steady heart rate? Because wouldn't steady mean calm? It's a common misconception that a perfectly steady heart rate is a sign of calm. Actually, you want high variability. HRV measures the tiny fluctuations in time between your heartbeats.
Okay.
If your heart beats like a rigid metronome, it means your sympathetic nervous system is dominating, locking you into a rigid state of stress.
Right.
High HRV means your heart rate subtly speeds up when you inhale and slows down when you exhale. It shows that your nervous system is incredibly flexible, resilient, and responsive. Kinexa treats the calm depicted in Renoir's portrait as a literal physiological target, and high HRV is the gold standard indicator that you have successfully reached that destination.
It proves that feeling calm isn't just a subjective mood. It's an objective, measurable biological state that you can reliably navigate toward using these specific tools.
Exactly. You are literally taking control of the control room.
It really is an incredible journey that Dr. Christophe Delong and Kinexa Formation have laid out for us today. I mean, we started with the protective, isolating blank stare of Manet's barmaid to put our brain in neutral and activate the default mode network.
Right.
Then we moved to the vital, guilt-free postural release of Degas's cafe patrons, venting the pressure valve to achieve a true tonic discharge.
Which is so important.
Yes, and from there, we used Morris Saad's gentle mirror to recalibrate our proprioceptive GPS without the toxic interference of judgment. And finally, we arrived at the serene, anchored, highly resilient homeostatic balance of Renoir's portrait.
This deep dive truly serves as a practical toolkit for your daily life. The next time you feel completely overwhelmed by the noise and demands of your environment, just remember that you have tangible biological levers you can pull.
Absolutely.
You can try that 4-to-6 breathing ratio to rebuild your body schema. You can widen your visual field to signal safety to your brain. Or, perhaps most importantly, you can just allow yourself to slump in a chair for 2 minutes, experiencing a true tonic discharge without an ounce of guilt.
The idea that the light fluid brushstrokes and soft pink tones of these Impressionist paintings literally induce a calming parasympathetic response in the viewer is just profound. It really makes you wonder, if staring at 19th century canvases acts as a biological trigger for deep recovery, what is the constant, unrelenting exposure to the sharp, high-contrast, aggressively backlit pixels of our modern screens secretly doing to our nervous systems on a daily basis?